This was one of the first things in the book that made me smile. They ordered sweet tea. And I'm sorry, there's a lot of people out there that write small town Southern fiction. Honey, if you don't have sweet tea in your book, it's not Southern fiction.
It's gotta be there, you know?
It's got to be there. That's the
Yeah.
house wine of the South. And I can't remember what movie I heard that in, but yeah, it's the house wine of the South.
That's awesome.
Welcome to the Bookish Introverts podcast. Join host Amazon bestselling author Brett Nelson and avid reader Melanie Dyer as they dive in to review books they've read, then chat with the amazing authors behind them. Quiet minds, big bookshelves. You don't want to miss it.
So how about we move into the discussion on Christmas Blizzard? So
Let's do it.
you may have to help me with this. Melanie and I sort of have a little process with how they do this. Melanie is fantastic. Melanie can talk about a book nonstop for an hour, and it flows beautifully. I'm like, he went, duh. Like I just can't talk about books like that. So this is the part of the interview that panics me the most because I can't talk about books like she does. So we're going to talk about it, and you just jump in. If there's anything I skip over that you want to talk about, this is a collaborative effort. We're going to do this together.
Let's try it.
So yeah.
Let's go for it.
And this is one of my favorite books of yours. Like I said, I've read the other two. And then when we get to the end, we're going to talk about why you wrote this book. That'll be one of our closing comments about it.
All right.
This is really my favorite book of yours because I love stories that center around inns or bread and breakfast. And I don't know why, but I just find those so interesting. And that's sort of the backdrop of this book. So what happens is we've got Cassie. She's working in Mama's Diner, and she has a tyrant of a boss named Roberta. And everybody calls her the Dragon Lady. And let me tell you, that is no exaggeration. She is not the nicest person in the room ever, is she?
No, she's not, I mean, she's kind of nasty, and it's like how she even keeps that diner open, it's surprising, but
Probably
everybody
because it's a small town and it's one of two restaurants to eat at, so people just deal with it. Yeah.
And everybody just ignores her. They think, oh, it's just Roberta,
It's just
but
Roberta,
the poor staff that works there, they just get it every single
They do.
day.
They do. And two of the characters actually quit the diner and went to work. One of them opened a bakery, and she took one of them because they just couldn't deal with Roberta anymore.
Right.
Yeah. So while Cassie's working, she's waiting on this large party, and the mayor's wife is in this. I think it's the parade planning committee. Is that they're planning a Christmas parade?
They just get together and then just to kick off the parade planning process.
Yeah, exactly. So they come in. Well, while she's waiting on these people, the sheriff comes in with his new deputy, which is a hunky deputy Austin. All the women in town want to get their hands on Deputy Austin. Yeah, exactly. So she waits on them, and this was one of the first things in the book that made me smile. They ordered sweet tea. And I'm sorry, there's a lot of people out there that write small town Southern fiction. Honey, if you don't have sweet tea in your book, it's not Southern fiction.
It's gotta be there,
It's gotta be there.
Yeah.
That's the house wine of the South. And I can't remember what movie I heard that in, but yeah, it's the house wine of the South.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So they order tea, and while she's waiting on these guys, the sheriff introduces Cassie to Austin, and Roberta yells at her, "There's food up here. Get to work, Cassie, blah, blah, blah." And she just basically, and there's a comment in the book that basically Roberta likes to embarrass her employees in front of customers. I had a boss like that years ago. I used to work when I was a teenager, I used to work at a fast food restaurant. And there was a manager that loved doing that. He would scream, "Brett, get your butt up here and do blah, blah, blah." while we had a
It's
counter
terrible.
full of, and it's terrible. And of course, back then I was nice and meek and quiet. Today I'm not so meek and mild. I'd probably give him a piece of my mind and walk out. But I'm like, what do people get out of treating people like that?
I
You
don't
know?
know. I think there's something that made him that way.
Yeah.
So there's some reason and Roberta has a reason for why
She
she is the
does.
way she
Yeah.
is,
Yeah. And we're going to kind of
and
skirt around that reason because
yeah,
I don't want to
because
spoil that. But
no,
yeah, there is a reason.
but there's always a reason. And I mean, we all work for a dragon, but then
We do. Yeah.
now that I'm older, I'm thinking it's like, I wonder what happened, why that person is the way he or she is, because you don't get like that by default,
No.
I don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
Something must have happened, and that's the beauty about writing. You get to dive into that a little bit.
You do.
It's
You
like,
and
what
you
makes
get to
them
kind
tick?
of but that's kind of one thing I like about about fiction is because you can sometimes you can take things to the extreme.
Mhm.
Things that happen to us in real life, things that happen in books don't always happen in real life. Sometimes they do. I mean, sometimes it is a reflection of but yeah, sometimes you can kind of take people like Roberta and build them up a little and you can see real life in it, but sometimes you can take it to the extreme and sort of make it fun. So yeah, but yeah, I do. I sometimes I think people like that think it makes them look cool, or it thinks it makes them look. But in all honesty, most people don't look at people like that and think, "Oh wow, you are so cool." They think you're a jerk.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah. So anyway, so while she's talking, Estelle comes up, and she's kind of the if you can call her that, she's kind of the vixen of the book, so to speak. Not in a sleazy sort of way, but she's Cassie's nemesis from high school. Estelle is sort of the really pretty, the really popular, and she and her friends are the mean girls of the book. And
Hmm.
while Cassie's talking to Austin, Estelle comes up and kind of like she wants him all to herself. Estelle wants Austin. And of course, I'm not spoiling anything here by saying it,
No.
but Cassie is the one meant to be with Austin, not with Estelle. So the whole book is sort of the conflict between Estelle and Cassie. So while she's frustrated that Estelle has come up and is like talking to him, and is like, because she's interested in him as well. She thinks he's handsome. So she's kind of distracted by her thoughts and she spills a tray full of food in the mayor's wife's lap. So, of
Yeah.
course, which is embarrassing, in any situation.
The
Roberta
worst.
exactly. Can you imagine? Roberta flies out of the kitchen and fires her on the spot in front of everybody. And is there any worse situation than being in front of somebody you're attracted to and something that humiliating happened? Not only dropping food on somebody's lap, but then getting fired for it. So she gets fired for it. She leaves the restaurant upset. Her mom calls, and we get a little bit of a backstory about her mom. Her mom's in a very unfortunate relationship with a drunkard of a
Hmm.
man. He's not a nice man. She basically has a low paying job, and she basically is the one that takes care of her and her husband. So there's a sad little story there. Um, and she invites her mom to come over for Thanksgiving because I think at this point Thanksgiving's like 3 days away, something like that.
Right. Yeah.
Um, her mom declines because she needs to be there with her dad, and so she kind of goes on. Her best friend, she was at lunch with her best friend in the diner. She's upset, and her friend comes over with cupcakes, some of her favorite cupcakes from the local bakery. And okay, you'll have to remind me this bakery was a main focus in, was it Twist of Fate?
Twist of Fate. Hmm.
Twist of Fate. What was the name of that
Yeah.
bakery? Do you remember?
Cherry on top cupcake.
Yes, I
Uh,
knew it had something to do with cherries. Yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
that's like the bakery in town. So she and her best friend talk. And while they're talking and everything, Mandy tells her, um, hey, I've heard that there may be an opening over at the Magnolia. Is it Magnolia Hill?
Magnolia. Yeah, Magnolia. I can't
Magnolia
even say
Hill
Magnolia Hill Inn.
Inn. Yeah, at the
Mm-hmm.
which is basically the town bed and breakfast. It's an inn.
Right.
And so one of the employees there, Leanne, is quitting and moving away. So she said, you might go talk to Miss Bainbridge and see if she has a job available for you. So the next day, she goes and talks to Miss Bainbridge. And of course, Miss Bainbridge has heard what's happened and she's humiliated because Cassie thinks, oh, she's not going to want to hire anyone that,
Mm-hmm.
that has basically embarrassed herself in front of the mayor's wife and ticked off the mayor's wife. So they
Right.
talk. Miss Bainbridge says, I'll give me your phone number. I'll call you back in a few days. Well, she leaves thinking I'm never going to get this job. Well, finally, Miss Bainbridge calls her and she was like, hey, I've decided to hire you, and everything. Can you start, I think, the day after Thanksgiving? So she is so excited. She goes in and starts her job the day after Thanksgiving. And one of her first duties is taking down all the Thanksgiving decorations and putting up the Christmas decorations. And so she and Miss Bainbridge kind of get to talking. And she, after a while, she's like, well, what made you decide to hire me after all that I've done, after I've embarrassed myself? And, and I love Miss Bainbridge. Miss
She's
Bainbridge is
sweet.
like, she is a sweet, fantastic character, and she was like, well, honey, everybody makes mistakes. We all mess up. She said, we don't look at the few incidents in life where we mess up don't define us. It's everything
Right.
else, that's just a little blip in a whole life. So I just loved how she had grace toward Cassie, because when you've messed up like that, when you've humiliated yourself, when you're kind of out of hope, you need somebody to have grace with you and say, you know what, this is not going to define you. And I loved
Mm-hmm.
that about her. Yeah, so I really liked her character. um so you kind of go through a few days of watching her on the job, and she while she's there, the phone rings. Well, Miss Bainbridge isn't around to answer it, so she doesn't know if she should answer it or not. So she answers the phone and tell him who it was. Do you remember?
Yes, it was. Of course, the one and only Deputy Austin Cooper.
Yes. And
And
what does he want?
he needs a room to stay because he was, he just has gotten out of the army, retired from the army, and got the new job, and so
And he's got
he was still in
an injury.
Savannah.
An
Yeah,
injury he's
he's got an
suffering. Yeah.
injury in his leg, but he, while he's waiting for his house, for all the paperwork for the house to close, but before he could move in town, he needed a place to stay. He didn't want to drive back and forth all the time from Savannah to the town to work, and so he goes and looking into staying at the inn, and of course, she's the one who answers the phone, and
Yeah.
she's like, oh, should she say who she is? No, she can't, and so it's like if he finds out that she works there, it's like, oh, this is gonna be a disaster,
Yeah.
and so she just kind of decided to keep it a secret, so she's, yeah,
Yeah.
but then he comes in person moving in. Yeah, so
Yeah.
now it's kind of a forced proximity kind of
Yes.
situation because they run
But
into each other all the time.
yes, and tell the listeners, there is one major rule that Miss Bainbridge has of her employees.
Oh,
Do you want to know where
yes.
I'm going with
I
this?
remember.
Okay,
Hmm.
tell them, because that kind of plays into this with him moving into the inn.
The number one rule is, if you're working at the inn, you are not to date any clients or guests. Guests is a
Yes.
better word.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's a no-go. If you're
And the book
gonna,
really doesn't go into, but there apparently she had an issue in the past with
Mhm.
employees dating guests, and so whatever it was really bad, and it's
Yes.
a no-no. which is
Yes. So
bad when you're in a closed proximity situation with two people that have feelings for each other. That is a huge hurdle.
yeah, well, and at that point, Austin doesn't know yet. He kind of likes her. He kind of feels sorry for her because he knew
Yeah.
that it wasn't her fault that the tray landed on
Yeah.
the mayor's wife's lap. Yeah, she had a big giant purse just sitting right there by her chair, and that's what
Yes.
she tripped over. I
Yes.
mean, so it wasn't really all her.
No.
So it's so he just kind of at the beginning he just feels sorry for her, but then it's like as they get to know each other and things happen that throws them together in a
Yeah.
way,
And allows
then
those feelings to kind of grow a little
right.
bit. Yeah. But
But
he has
she
reservations
can't
too.
date.
Yeah, she can't date, and he has reservations too because this book does have some themes of PTSD on his part.
PTSD.
So he has reservations about even when his feelings start to grow toward her a little bit, he still has reservations into it because he doesn't really want to get into a relationship.
Yeah, because he thinks that she doesn't deserve somebody like him. He's broken, because
Yeah.
he's still suffering from the events that earned him all these medals,
Yeah.
in the military. And I mean, he's a decorated war hero, but he doesn't want anybody to focus on that. It just makes him feel bad if people say, "Oh, you're such a hero," and he cringes, because
Yeah.
he just
He
wanted to
doesn't
get
like
his
that
men
word.
home. Yeah, and so, and he thinks too that the things that haunt him, that's his problem to deal with on his own. He doesn't want to open up to any of it,
Yeah.
and he's struggling. So, so that's a big part of that. And I mean, his first marriage ended because it's just military life, and it's difficult, and now his focus is on just to get settled, start his new life outside the military, and become a civilian, so to speak, and just move on. Yeah, and it's never a good idea to date someone while you're in a big life-changing phase. So.
Or really to make any life decisions when you're in that kind of emotional turmoil, that you really just shouldn't make any major life decisions.
Right. And so that's his conundrum. So now we have two conflicted people.
Well, and she's conflicted too because she sees Estelle as more of his type. Estelle is really pretty. She's more. I think I think she's Cassie's probably pretty, but she sees herself as the lesser of the two. So she thinks, even though she's interested in him, she thinks she's not his type either. So you've got that sort of tug of war that's keeping the two apart.
Yeah.
Yeah, which
and
is kind of fun.
especially, for the war hero, it's like, so he's kind of like a celebrity in town. It's like, ooh, everybody's talking about him. And then Estelle, just works right into that, because she was always the talk of high school, and then later on, hanging out with the Lakeview Heights crowd, which is like the richer side of the lake,
The Mean Girls.
and
The Mean Girls. Yeah.
yeah. And so, it's like, okay, so they would match in her mind, in Cassie's mind. I mean, she has no chance, He wouldn't like somebody like a waitress that got fired in front of him, on the first moment they met, and I mean, yeah, she's just thinking, it's like, I'm probably gonna lose this one, but then she's like, no, I'm gonna show her, because I'm not gonna let her defeat me, I mean, so there's that dynamic going on, because she wants to be strong this time. She doesn't want to give in into all that drama. Then she's dishing out, and yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
she's gonna show her.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And there were there were several little quippy little moments in there that kind of made me laugh, and I wish I had written them all down but there was one that really made me laugh. Cassie and Mandy, they go into a rock bar just to kind of have a little girls' night out,
Right.
and they're in there, and Estelle and her friends come in. And of course, Estelle has to go over and get her barbs in, because in typical mean girl style. And so they have their little words, and Estelle walks away, and Cassie goes, let me find it here. She goes, "My world, that girl is like a whack-a-mole. She pops up at the worst times."
Yeah.
That was so funny. Uh,
So pop. It's
yeah.
like, there it is. Oh, it's like,
Yeah.
can't get rid
Yeah.
of her,
Yeah, so for readers that like books with a little bit of funny little quips like that in there, so while they're in there, uh, after Estelle goes away, Austin walks in, and so of course he starts to go over just because he wants to hang with Cassie and them. Well, guess who comes over and hijacks him?
Mm-hmm.
Tell him about it.
Oh gosh, I
Cassie,
don't remember much of it.
Yeah.
But she just pretty much she wants
Estelle.
to take Estelle wants to take him over and asks him. It's like, hey, this
Do you want to
is
hang with
so
us tonight?
dull. Yeah, because we're gonna go into Savannah or wherever they were going. To a cool place. This is
place.
just
Yeah.
and come with us, and I knew exactly what she was gonna do. It's just she just wants to get him into her crowd, and then see if they can finally get a little bit further in what.
Yeah.
And
And he very nicely declines, and then goes and meets with Mandy and Cassie,
sits
which
with them.
enrages Estelle, because how dare anybody,
Yes.
how dare anyone deny me what I want? And so, of course, in true typical friend fashion, Mandy gets up and, she has to leave for whatever reason. And so that's almost Cassie, even though it's not technically a date, that's kind of their air quote first date.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
I mean, that was like one of my more I got really excited about that scene when I wrote that. It's like, ooh, like delicious little friction going on here. And she's gonna show, and everything's gonna go totally against what Estelle expected. She expected him to go with her,
absolutely,
and her friends, and he picked Cassie. It's like one of those tropes. He picked me. Oh my gosh! How did I get so lucky? He's gonna come and sit with me. It's like, whoa! and Cassie didn't expect that. Because she's like, great, here he goes.
She sees herself as inferior to Estelle, so why would anyone choose her?
Right.
Which, as a guy, I would much rather have Cassie than Estelle. I'm just saying. Yeah.
Have the more down to earth, the authentic person, and not just because I think I don't know if I put that in or something, but I think he was thinking at one point, it's like, how long must it take for Estelle to get ready? Doing the nails, the perfect makeup, getting the hair done, and all that work that she would put into her looks and her, just her appearance. Whereas
so she can go out
Cassie,
and be a mean girl.
Yeah. Whereas Cassie, she's the total opposite. She is who she is, and you get what you see. And and she is very honest, and she's just, just a normal person, like Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Well, and one thing I liked about the book, pretty much any book you read's gonna have drama, and things to overcome. And there
mhm.
was drama in the book, specifically between Estelle and Cassie, but it wasn't the type of overfraught, over the top drama. It was just good, fun drama.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I like that because sometimes people go way over the top with drama. So
No.
I thought you achieved a nice balance of drama there
Well,
in
thank
creating
you.
that situation. Yeah. Yeah.
And I try to keep it authentic too. It's like, would a person really react like that, in that
Yeah.
situation? And is well, I probably don't go into that, where Cassie was uh, reduced to tears when something happens and she realized, oh no, it's like, I think, he changed, and he picked her. He picked Estelle over her, and something, she was going to do an innocent gesture, and she
Uh-huh.
finds out about something that she perceived as being uh, her being at the short end of the stick. Yeah. So,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
yeah.
So
And it's heart wrenching,
yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah. It
I don't want to
is.
go too deep into it because it's just getting more towards
Yeah, it's getting toward the
the
end. We don't want to give
mhm.
spoilers, but I do want to talk about how as the days go by, the parade committee comes into the inn, and they have another meeting, and the meteorologist speaks up and tell them kind of what happens there. Do you remember what? The reason I'm asking her, I don't. For those of you, you're probably thinking, "Oh my gosh, she wrote the book. Of course she remembers." But that's not always the case. When
No,
when
it's
you're an
terrible.
author, sometimes when it's been years, because once I finish a book, I don't pick it up and reread it again because I'm sick of it. And sometimes you can forget the details. Sometimes I can't even remember the names of the characters in my books that I wrote. So that's
Yes.
why I'm asking you that. So tell them kind of what kind of obstacle they're coming up against once the meteorologist gets involved.
So the Christmas parade meetings are being like the committee meetings are being held in the larger room of the inn. Yeah, for some reason I forget what it was. Again, see, just I can't
Yeah.
remember all the details, but so it's going to be at the inn again.
Uh-huh.
And meteorologist says, well, we have a problem. There's a frontal system coming in. Is causing already havoc, with a blizzard like situations. It's like in the northwestern states, and it's going to be huge. So it's making its way down to the southeast and
And it's going to
uh,
hit on the day of the parade.
the parade. So
And the
it's like,
parade is a big deal in their town. It's like an
mm-hmm.
annual parade, and it's a big deal for their town. So this
It's
is
like an all
kind of
get out.
catastrophic news for them. Yeah.
Yeah, because you want to, and especially since you don't really have much snow. It's kind of like with
Yeah.
us in Alabama. I mean, the northern parts get snow, like Atlanta and them would get snow, but if you're further down south, um, usually I mean, snow is a huge event. Yeah, I
It
mean,
is. Yeah. Yeah.
it's crazy. Yeah,
Yeah.
so but this is coming, and nobody would be prepared. And so they're having to figure out if they're going to postpone the parade or have it early, or what they're going to do about it, because the timing would have been to that storm just hitting that same night.
Hmm.
The parade is, and do you want to put um the local residents, you want to put them in that situation to where you have all this wind blowing and
Uh-huh.
nasty weather,
Yeah.
and so don't.
So he
Yeah,
gives
so
them news they don't want to hear.
mhm.
And the interesting about this storm is, and I've never uh course, at this meeting, they don't really know exactly what's going to happen or when. They just know, well, and then a little later in the book, they have another meeting, and the meteorologist like, okay, has developed into a major storm. And this is an interesting storm that I've never seen one like because, of course, in the South, even though you're at Christmas time, I can remember Christmases when I've wore shorts and flip flops because it's
Hmm.
75 degrees. And like, there is nothing that sucks the joy out of Christmas than it being hot on Christmas, at least for me, because I want the Hallmark Christmas. I want the knee deep snow and I want the
Right.
mittens and the scarves. But this storm, it's unseasonably warm there and it's going to be like tornadic type weather followed by a blizzard event. I have never
Hmm.
heard of a storm like that. Have you? Have you been through a
Well,
storm like that?
I have actually. This idea was based on the for that book. It was based on the blizzard of '93. We were stationed in Fort Stewart, Georgia, which is about an hour west of Savannah, Georgia.
Hmm.
So, and this storm actually happened in March, but I figured, hey, this is a Christmas book. Let's put it at Christmas.
Yeah, yeah.
and but the way that storm went, um, it would, like you had a big line of storm sweeping across the United States. And in the northern part, it was all snow, blizzard like conditions. And then when it picked up in, I think in Louisiana is when it got really bad. When uh, we had a lot of, like a big line of thunderstorms, tornado warnings, in all this craziness, as it was sweeping in Mississippi, and then what was that? Then Alabama, and then it came to Georgia. And by the time it arrived, um, in where we were stationed at, yeah, it was the worst night I've ever experienced. Because that line of storm, I mean, nonstop lightning flashes, and it was loud, and you heard. We were in brick military housing, and the windows were just kind of shaking and wobbling. Yeah, not wobbling, but it's just go boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
To hear that, and tornado warnings left and right. I mean, it was insane. And I said, why are they calling this a blizzard? This is like really bad storm. But then overnight, the temperature had changed. It's like once a front pushed through, I mean, it just dropped from, like, I was out there and was I think I was out there in t-shirts and capris or so that the day before, and then the morning after, there was a dusting of snow and still wind blowing everywhere. Trees were down and everything. So we just got a little dusting of it, but it was bad enough where there was so much damage around us, that it was just an insane
Devastating. Yeah.
experience. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
And
and for
yeah.
for the readers who say, "Oh, things blizzards don't happen in the South," they're not common, but they
Hmm.
do happen. Yeah, they do happen.
Yeah. So it's just a different form, I mean, we had a lot of blowing snow. I mean, I remember that. It just would it was I mean, it wouldn't stick so much. It would stick a couple counties up north from us, but it was just so much wind and so much uh, weather coming through. I mean, it was still in the same system as the blizzard, but
Yeah.
but yeah, it's like I've never been through anything like that. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
crazy. And
As a weather
I
person, it
decided,
sounds kind of fun.
yeah.
Yeah.
And when I was writing the book, it's like, I really want to have some more snow. Let's give them some more snow, and
Yeah.
just uh, embellished there a little bit, So yeah,
Yeah.
but that just later turned into slush, and that turned into a couple other problems that the couple, not couple, but that Austin and Cassie have to help out as good, like as part of the community,
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So, but it was just so much fun to write, because I got my storm stuff and I get it out of the way. It's like, oh, I gotta have my storms in there.
Exactly. Well, and one thing while they were in there having this meeting, Miss Bainbridge comes out and says, "Hey, Cassie, can you come in and help me with the snacks?" And a little bit later, Austin walks in, and he has a piece of clothing on that does not make Cassie very happy. Do you know where I'm going with this?
Oh,
Tell him
was
about
it?
it.
Oh, was it? He was wearing a Roll Tide shirt.
Yes. Tell us
Or
about that.
Was it a shirt or was it a hat?
I think it was a hoodie or a
Or
sweatshirt or something. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I take it you're not a Roll Tide fan.
I am.
Oh, you are?
But,
Okay.
considering, so, because he grew up in Alabama,
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
that's,
okay.
so the football team, like for those who are not following football, Alabama college football team, they're like, I mean, everything in Alabama
Yeah.
revolves around football, and then
Oh,
of
for
course you
sure.
have
Yeah.
the Alabama and Auburn, that's like, okay,
The rivalry.
yeah, and we kind of have the same relationship with the Georgia Bulldogs, it's like, since she is from Georgia, it's like Cassie is from Georgia, so she's a Bulldog fan.
Yes, and she told him, "Listen here, mister, you're going to have to go take off that Roll Tide shirt and put on some Bulldogs."
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's a big deal, and it's just so much fun because you can have so much fun with football references around here because it's a big thing here in the South. It's like football's
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I thought that was a fun little dynamic to kind of get in the different teams and stuff for the areas.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
And we have that in our family too. It's like my father-in-law, he went to University of Georgia, so he's a Bulldog fan. But then everybody else in the family, they're Alabama fans. So we're going like, Roll Tide, and it's like, whatever.
Yeah. I thought that was a fun little nod to the teams.
Yes.
So while they're in the kitchen, and we're not going to go into any major details on this because it's a spoiler, but it's at this point that Miss Bainbridge tells Cassie kind of why the circumstances that led to Roberta being the way she is. So that gives Cassie a little bit of empathy for Roberta. And so we're going to fast forward a little through the book. We're going to get up to the day of the storm. And I have to tell you, you did a very good job of painting the scene of how things go leading up to a major storm, like when it's coming. Like for me, I love stuff like that. So it's almost like there's a crackle of excitement in the air, for storms. And so of course there's all these guests in there, so they're trying to tell them how to behave during the storm. We're going to go out in the hallway and they give them the candle or the light bulbs,
the flashlights or whatever.
Yeah, and all that. And so the storm arrives, and it's Cassie and all this lightning and this huge thunderstorm. Cassie and Austin go outside and they sort of have a little romantic moment, sort of outside.
They realize, it's like them.
It's almost like they acknowledge it for the first time. He puts his arm around her and she kind of lays her head over on his shoulder, and the wind's whipping around and the lightning's flashing. It's just a very it's like that's a very cool backdrop for a romantic moment. That's
I
not how you
know.
usually see romantic moments in books. So I thought that was a very cool, different backdrop. And of course, the rule is you're not allowed to commingle with guests. You're not allowed to have romantic, you know, anything with guests. Well, she gets her head on her shoulder, and then guess what happens? Miss
Well,
Bainbridge voice
Bainbridge
comes
comes
out.
out.
Yeah, Cassie, can you come in? And then of
Just,
course it goes
oh,
into the next chapter. Yeah, yeah. So she never says anything to. I kind of expected a staunch reprimand to come, and I really didn't think she would get fired. But I kind of expected you know my rules, you broke my rules, blah blah. But that actually never happened. So they go in, they get through the storm, and they wake up the next morning, and there's a layer of snow on the ground.
yay.
So yeah, so we finally get our snow. So Austin comes in. He's been out all night helping deal with the results of the storm and everything. Well, he comes in, to grab a little bit of breakfast and some coffee, and says, "Well, hey, I'm fixing to head over to Roberta's diner because they've had some flooding." Well, Cassie goes, "Oh, well, I'm going to go with you. That's where she used to work and everything." And I think the story about what happened to Roberta kind of softened her heart toward her. So they go over there. She talks a couple of her friends who were also former employees of Roberta's into going with them. They don't really want to because they're all like, Roberta's the dragon lady. We don't want to help
Yeah.
her.
It's like,
But they
no.
kind of put their feelings aside, because that's kind of what you do in small towns. You're there for each other. And Roberta is touched by it, that all these people, and there's a sweet little moment where she's like, I can't believe you guys came in and helped me, and because I've been so horrible to all you guys. So you get a little bit of reconciliation there. And so that's kind of, I think we'll probably not say as much after that because we get into this, we get into spoiler territory.
Spoiler
But I
weather.
will say,
Yeah. Spoiler weather.
exact spoiler alert. Yeah. So I will say though that you do get a happy ending.
Always.
Mom gets a happy ending to her story. So this was a great book.
Oh, thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you. I
So
enjoyed writing it.
yeah, did you? Yeah. So
I did.
tell the readers how you came about writing this book.
It was great. Yeah, so we were talking back and forth, like when Brad was doing the interview on the blog interview, and he said something. It's like, I like Christmas stories. It's like, man, it's like, look, Nikki, you had a hurricane, you had a tornado, you had a wildfire. What about a blizzard? And I was like, well,
But it's in the
because it's like you
South.
kind of run out of ideas.
There's
It's
only
like
so
it's
many
like
natural
storms.
disasters. Yeah.
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 And then it's like, well, how am I gonna do a blizzard? And I'm like, this is like Southeast Georgia,
Yeah.
so you don't get blizzards and like that. Well, sort of blizzards, but it's like, how am I gonna pull that off, And then I
Yeah.
just started thinking about it. I mean, you challenged me. It's like, do it. And it's like, well, I don't know, and how am I gonna make that work, And then it turns out, it's like
Yeah.
somehow the puzzle pieces, like I was mentioning earlier, they fit together. I made them come together, and the story just kind of started unfolding. It's like,
Yeah.
oh man. And
I think I
it
can
turns
actually
out,
do this.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you're here's a little author like insight again. So all authors, or most of them, it's like everybody wants to get this BookBub deal. So BookBub is
It's very hard to get one. I've been
it's
trying for
super
years.
hard to promote your book through that that service.
Yeah.
And it's like, usually about like only like 1-2% or so
Yeah.
get through of all the people that try to get their book into that promotion. Yeah. And I've been trying for years to get any of my books in there, and I always decline.
Yeah.
You know, I was like, oh,
We
yeah,
don't think
whatever.
this
Yeah,
book
just
would
keep going.
would work with our readers. Yeah.
Not right now, you know,
Yeah.
maybe try again at a different time. So you just kind of get on a schedule and you just submit. And eventually, you know, you might actually get something.
Yeah.
And I kid you not, a year after Christmas Blizzard came out, and I applied for it, that BookBub deal, that that second year, and all of a sudden I got approved. It's like, after all these years, I
You're
finally
like,
got one approved. You know, I mean, you spend a lot of money to get it
it's a
into,
lot of
but
money.
you
Yeah.
make that money back, and
I mean, you
then
literally
some.
get thousands of sales through a
Mhm.
BookBub. Yeah.
Yeah, and even though it was like marked down to 99 cents, I made up the money that I had to put down on it, and in royalties, you know. I mean, that's like gazillion books that sold. So
Yeah.
it's like, wow, you know, it just had the right vibe in for that time, you know, and
Yeah. Somebody at
I got
BookBub
it.
liked the idea of it. Yeah.
Yeah. And then again in October this
Of
year, I mean, this
24.
last
Yeah.
October 24, I hit it another time. You know, I got another one. It's like wow, you know.
Yeah.
So that was exciting. And so for any authors, you know, I mean, the first time you get one of those deals, you know, that is just, it's like awesome. You know, you just kind of get, what?
Yeah.
I can't believe it.
And I can
And
tell you, I have a hate relationship with BookBub
mhm,
because I mean, it's the cream of the crop. It's every writer's dream come true to get a BookBub deal. And of course, I write Christian fiction. Almost nearly every single day, there are two genres of books that are included on BookBub every single day: cowboy fiction and Amish fiction.
mhm,
Okay, and neither one of those are genres I like. I very rarely buy any books through BookBub
yeah,
because in Christian fiction, you know, and occasionally there'll be secular books that I'll buy, but it's
mhm,
like, okay, BookBub, stop putting Christian fiction readers in a box. Not
right,
everybody. That's not the only two fiction genres of book that Christian readers like to read.
mhm,
Give us a little bit of variety. You know, so I mean, it's
right,
great if you write cowboy fiction and Amish fiction. Neither one of those genres appeal to me. So yeah, I
yeah,
have a little bit of a hate relationship with BookBub because I'm just like, stop putting us in a box.
right, right.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
and I mean, until, you know, more authors are requesting these things, you know, maybe there's going to be some changes, you know, but if,
yeah,
you know, I mean, you know, I mean, it's tough, you know. I've saw some other newsletter type promo things, you know, that they keep the steamy romances way up top, and then
uh-huh,
and even though you're putting in for clean romance, yeah, and then you'll be on the bottom, yeah,
yeah,
because
yeah. People have to
that's how it
scroll
is.
to get down to you. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. So, and I just decided, you know, it's
So
like,
you're
no, I
welcome.
don't really want to, you know, yeah, I don't want to be, yeah, promoting through them, you know, because
Yeah,
if you're thinking about it, you know, the folks that read steamy romances, they might read clean romances as maybe a palate cleanser or something, you know. So, but you know, the main stuff is up there,
uh-huh.
and but then if you think about it, the ones that read clean romances, not too many want to go up into the steamy, you know.
Oh no, no.
You know, so
Yeah,
you know, there's a big difference of audiences, you know. And so if um if you know, if you're the romance genre or subgenre that's being promoted is like more in that steamy area, then I'm like,
Yeah.
it's like, I don't know if my readers are going to pick that up,
Yeah.
so then I'm just wasting
And
money.
there is a huge market for clean and wholesome fiction. So yeah. My next book that's coming out, even though I write Christian fiction, my next book that's coming out is going to be clean fiction, clean secular fiction. So I thought I would just dabble in that and just see how it works. I was like, I may
give it a shot.
Yeah, exactly. Give it a shot and see what happens. So we're going to start wrapping this up because we've been on here for a little bit. But can you give us a little snapshot of what you're working on next? What's to come next?
All right. Then the next one is actually, you're going to continue some of Austin's and Cassie's journey, just for a little glimpse, because they're going to have a wedding. I mean, they're going to have a wedding in Alabama. And it's going to be like in the Orange Beach area, and I called the community Camellia Bay. And that's so it's just southern Alabama. We love going down to the beach down there.
I bet. Yeah.
I'm bringing the new series closer to me. Instead of having it in Georgia, I bring them to me.
Oh, fun. Okay.
Yeah, so I can do some more travel down there. Every time we go down to the beach, I can do some touring around and research. Yeah. But so they're gonna have a wedding, and of course, Mandy, the best friend, she's gonna be the next one to be paired up.
Oh, good.
To someone you've already met. In Christmas Blizzard.
Ooh, now I'm going to have to rack my brain and think back and see. Fun.
I'm not going to say who it is,
fun little teaser. Yeah.
Yeah. So the wedding is going to be the event, but it's going to be about Mandy and the other person that appeared in Christmas Blizzard. Yeah.
Do you have an idea of how many books might be in that series? Or is it still up in the air?
That one, I'm thinking it's going to be about 4, the way I broke it down. Yeah, so they're all going to be, like all my books, individual love stories, but in a community, so you still have that small town feel, and you get to know everybody, and your characters from other books will pop up and say hello, and be part of another book, so I love having that, even as a reader. I just love it when other characters from previous books pop back in, and it's like, how are you doing? And what's going on in your life now? And it just kind of, it's like, I love having them come back. So
it's almost like getting a little visit from a friend.
Yes. Yeah. And that's kind of what I get when I read, that's my feel good, something that I'm looking forward to. And if an author does that really well, and it's like, oh yeah, I'm in it. I'm going to read the other books, because I just want to know more how, after they get together, so you have that, you can have like bonus epilogues, but if you see them in somebody else's story, come in and visit, it's kind of like that Easter egg kind of thing. And it makes you all giddy and happy. And it's like,
it's like, woo. Yeah.
You get to follow them, a little bit.
Yeah,
so
that's a fun thing about a series. It's you have that little sense of familiarity. So before we go, let's take like a minute or two and just give a brief description of each of the books in the series. Tell the readers a little bit about each of the books. That way, if they want to, we kind of told them the names, but I thought it might be fun to just kind of give them a brief synopsis of each of the books in case they want to look them up.
Okay, so
and then while you're talking, I'll flash a cover of the book on the screen for those that are watching on YouTube.
Okay, so you can always start out with the free book that I have. I usually send them out in newsletter swaps and stuff. But if you want to have a sample of how my writing goes, you can you can look at Floodwaters. So Floodwaters is actually a parallel story to the first book, the official book of the Southern Storm series, which is Hurricane Beach. So both of them have the same hurricane in it, but it's the story. The free book is a novella, and it's from a different perspective, from a different character that we get to meet in Hurricane Beach as well, So, but that one you can get if you go on my website, the Lexie website. Do you want to just put it on below or something? Or it's lexienicholas.com.
Okay, yeah, I'll flash the website on the bottom of the screen. But it's lexienicholas.com for the people that are listening and not watching. Right.
And so that one is my little sampler, and then Hurricane Beach is actually about a hurricane that's about to hit Savannah, the coast. And so Anna, the main character, she had just returned home to Magnolia Hill with her teenage daughter, who did not want to leave Colorado and all her friends. And so she's disgruntled. And she doesn't want to be living in grandma's house and and so Anna just had a divorce, so she's coming back home and start a new life and trying to just make a living, try to get back on her feet, and she runs into her high school sweetheart, Jason, who is now the chief meteorologist of the local TV station. And so they find, he just lost his spouse, his wife, a while back, a couple of years ago, and he has a teenage daughter as well, and so they, so none of them really want to date, but they remember the good old times when they were dating, not dating, were they dating? Yes, they were, because they were high school sweethearts. Blah, blah. But so basically, as the hurricane is coming towards Georgia, off the coast, so he invites her to come with him, to report on the hurricane and meet it head on, so. They're going to go to Tybee Island, which is a beach I've been to several times, and that's where I was supposed to make landfall. So that's where the story picks up. They were just going to go as friends, as friends, and well, we'll see how that works, right?
See how that works.
Yeah. And then the next book in the series, that's Twist of Fate. That's the one that you were talking about earlier, where Jenna, who worked at Roberta's at one point, she opened her cupcake bakery, and across the street from her is this doctor. He had a heart attack, it's like, physician telling all his patients, don't do this, don't do that, but then neglecting his own health, until he had a heart attack, which was his awakening. So he said, okay, I gotta chill out and gotta slow down. So he came from Atlanta to a small town, and he moves in there, but he's having a hard time, just dealing with food stuff, just and all the smell that from the bakery, it drives him insane, because he wants to eat cupcakes and all that, but he knows if he does that, he might have another heart attack. And so.
And who doesn't want to eat cupcakes? I'm just saying.
I know. And so they have, this one is an enemies to lovers kind of thing, it's because he wants to shut her down, because all his patients that saying, okay, we're going to be coming off the sugar, we're not going to eat all this now. And as soon as they leave the doctor's office, they go over to the bakery. Every time,
Every time.
So so that's their story.
Yeah.
And then
That's a fun one.
Firewatch. In Firewatch, that takes us into the Blue Ridge Mountains, North Georgia. So the sheriff in town from Magnolia Hill, we know him. He is taking his son up on a father-son camping trip. That's what they do every year, and it's a tradition. And his son is in high school, so he knows that they don't have much more time together, like that. So he takes him up there, but there is an author from Colorado. This author, her writing got a little bit like meh, it's like the publisher wants to drop her, if she doesn't come up with anything original to continue her writing and her series. So she said, well, we're gonna pay for you to go for about a week on this camping trip in Georgia, and you figure it out. It's like you're gonna go rough camping. And she's like, I hate camping. I don't even know. It's like, no, you're gonna do this or we're gonna drop you.
Yeah.
So she has to go down there, and she doesn't know how to even put her tent up, and everything's just going wrong. But she's too proud to admit that she can't handle it.
Yeah.
So and father son are up there up the hill. They hear a loud scream. They come running. So. He's a sheriff, he wants to make sure that nobody's in trouble, and so that's how they meet, and so, but then, in the distance, they smell fire, like a faint smell of fire. And so they, and it's getting worse, it's like, as time progresses, so they get caught in a little bit of something there. So, and
a little bit of
there
action
you go.
adventure, it sounds like. Yeah.
And then, of course, the last one is Blizzard, Christmas Blizzard, which
and for those, I know we're
about.
technically past Christmas, but for those that are listening, it does have some Christmas themes in it, but I will say it's not like smack you in the face Christmas themes. So I think that's why I kind of wanted to focus on this book right now instead of like one of your others, because it's still winter, and I felt like so if you may be done with Christmas books, but I still think you will enjoy reading it now because it's not smack you in the face ho 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 type Christmas. So
No.
all right. Well, I'm so glad you came on. Before we go, tell the readers where they can find you on social media if they want to follow you.
So the best one for social media would be Lexie Nicholas, author. That's my my Facebook page. I gotta admit, I'm very sucky with Facebook.
I know.
It's like, yeah, because it's like, I'm very sporadic on that. My main means of communication is actually my website, not my website, but my newsletter. And I do a monthly newsletter, and I usually put in some other books too from other authors that you might be interested in. But there, in the newsletter, you'll get some updates about what I'm doing, what I'm up to, where my writing is going, how when the next book's coming out, and just like, I just
a couple little
updates.
It's a fun little email to get every month. I'm on your mailing list. Yeah.
So you get a little bit of, like the author insights and personal insights too, and but I also have Instagram, which, I think it was also Lexie Nicholas, author or writer, one of those.
Okay.
But But the main one really is my newsletter. Yeah.
Okay.
And I enjoy doing that. And I love it when readers write me back. It's kind of like having a pen
Yeah.
pal.
I love getting emails from readers.
So that, yeah, that's the best way to find
That's
me.
the
And
best way
of
to find you.
course,
Okay.
LexieNicholas.com if you want the free book. Yeah, you can go there.
Yeah.
And it's right when you get it, it's like right up top. You see it. And then
just subscribe to your newsletter. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And if you want to follow the Bookish Introverts podcast, we're on Instagram, Facebook as Bookish Introverts podcast. My author page is Brett Nelson Author. So you can email us at bookishintrovertspodcast@gmail.com. We love hearing from you. So I think we're going to wrap this up because we're right at 2 hours. So
Wow.
this has been
Already?
already. Can you believe it? This has
No.
been such a it's been so fun to talk to you. So thank you for coming on at the last minute. Listeners, thank you for listening. And we will be back maybe next week. I'm not sure. We were supposed to do Francine Rivers' Redeeming Love this last time. So that'll be our next one. Hopefully it'll be next week. By this time, hopefully all the snow and ice will be gone and we'll be able to get back to normal functions. So, but anyway, thank you, Lexie, or thank you, Nikki, for coming on and helping us have another podcast to put out. And listeners, we will talk to you guys next time we see you. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us on the Bookish Introverts podcast, where together we explore the worlds within the pages. Until next time, stay bookish.